Hello, my name is Jim Bratton. Because of the nature of construction work, hazards exist in practically every workplace. Sharp edges, falling objects, flying sparks, potentially dangerous chemicals, noise, and roadway traffic are just a few of the hazards we may routinely encounter while we're on the job. In many cases, these hazards have been minimized or eliminated by using a system called hierarchy of controls. Engineering controls, such as guardrails, barricades, or machine guards, may be installed to help protect workers from dangerous areas. Or less hazardous substances may be substituted to reduce risk to workers. Administrative controls may also be put into place. Where hazardous levels of dust or noise are present, for example, work may be planned to limit the amount of time employees are exposed to the hazard. Options may include using shorter or rotating shifts, or coordinating work during off hours to minimize the hazard to surrounding workers. A third method of hazard protection is personal protective equipment. Even if engineering and administrative controls have been employed, hazards may still exist. This is when PPE comes into play. PPE is equipment worn to minimize exposure to a variety of hazards. Examples of PPE include eye and face protection, protective hearing devices, hard hats, respirators, gloves, high visibility workwear, foot protection, and fall protection systems. OSHA requires employers to provide PPE when necessary to protect their employees from workplace hazards that can cause injury or illness. OSHA also requires employees to properly wear and maintain their PPE to protect themselves from those hazards. If you don't wear PPE, or if your PPE fails, then you may be directly exposed to hazards in the workplace. That's why we will be discussing the importance of PPE here today. Now let's take a look at the different kinds of PPE and explain how you can use this equipment to help ensure your personal safety. Let's start with eye protection. Thousands of people are blinded each year from work-related eye injuries that could have been prevented with the proper selection and use of eye and face protection. Eye injuries alone cost more than $500 million per year in lost production time, medical expenses, and worker compensation. Personal protective equipment for the eyes and face is designed to prevent or lessen the severity of injuries to workers. Your employer should select eye and face protectors based on the anticipated hazards, such as impact, heat, chemicals, dust, or optical radiation hazards. You will know that your safety glasses have been rated for construction hazards if they have been stamped with the Z87.1 designation. In general, wear safety glasses or face shields anytime there is a risk of foreign objects or substances getting into the eye, such as during welding, cutting, grinding, nailing, or when working with concrete and/or harmful chemicals, or when exposed to flying particles. In some cases, such as when grinding or cutting with an abrasive cutting wheel, you will be required to wear safety glasses and a face shield. Wear safety glasses or face shields when exposed to any electrical hazards, including work on energized electrical systems. Be sure to consult the applicable National Fire Protection Association 70E tables for the appropriate protective equipment for these hazards. Keep in mind that prescription corrective lenses will not provide adequate protection against occupational eye and face hazards. Wear eye protection that incorporates the prescription into the design, or wear additional eye protection over your prescription lenses. Also remember that simply adding side shields to your prescription lenses may not properly protect your eyes. Some prescription lenses are too small to comply with applicable requirements, and some lens materials may shatter on impact. Exposure to high levels of noise can cause irreversible hearing loss or impairment, as well as physical and psychological stress. When you're exposed to high levels of noise, always wear appropriate hearing protection. Hearing protection includes earplugs or earmuffs. The need for hearing protection depends on the loudness of the noise as measured in decibels and the duration of the exposure to the noise. Some types of hearing protection include single-use earplugs, preformed or molded earplugs, and earmuffs. Single-use earplugs are typically made of foam, silicone rubber, or other pliable materials. They are self-forming, and when properly inserted, they work as well as most molded earplugs. Preformed or molded earplugs must be individually fitted following manufacturer's requirements and can be disposable or reusable. Reusable plugs should be cleaned after each use. In some cases, your employer may provide custom molded plugs that are fitted by a professional. These plugs can be very effective and are suitable for use by only one person. Earmuffs require a perfect seal around the ear. Glasses, facial hair, long hair, or facial movements, such as chewing, may reduce the protective value of earmuffs. When using hearing protection, be sure to consult the manufacturer's instructions for the proper protection level and proper use and fit requirements. Clean earplugs regularly and replace those you cannot clean. Many construction workers are at risk of head injuries caused by falling or flying objects, bumps to their heads from fixed objects, or accidental head contact with electrical hazards. A head injury can impair an employee for life, or it can be fatal. Wearing a hard hat is one of the easiest ways to protect your head from injury. Hard hats can protect workers from impact and penetration hazards, as well as electrical shock and burn hazards. Wear hard hats if you are exposed to risk of falling objects, bumping your head against fixed objects, such as exposed pipes or beams, or if there is a possibility of accidental head contact with electrical hazards. Be aware of special project or contract requirements that may require wearing hard hats at all times. Wear a hard hat that is appropriate for the hazard. Class C hard hats are intended to reduce the force of impact of falling objects, but offer no electrical protection. Class E hard hats are designed to reduce the force of impact of falling objects and to reduce the danger of contact with exposed high-voltage electrical conductors. Sample shells are proof tested at 20,000 volts. Class G helmets are intended to reduce the force of impact of falling objects and to reduce the danger of contact with exposed low-voltage electrical conductors. For certification, sample shells are proof tested at 2200 volts of electrical charge. Whatever hard hat you wear, make sure it fits properly. Head protection that is either too large or too small is inappropriate for use. Wear your hard hat brim forward to help protect your face from impact. Be sure to consider integral hard hats and welding or cutting shields when performing these operations. Your head should not be unprotected because of improper equipment or inadequate pre-planning. Inspect hard hats routinely for dents, cracks, or deterioration. Do not cover your hard hat with stickers, paint, or other materials that could prevent a thorough inspection. Replace hard hats after a heavy blow or electrical shock. Be especially aware of damage that can be caused by contact with chemicals or solvents or by excessive sunlight. Just like any other plastics, such as videos or CDs, your hard hat should never be stored on the dashboard or in the back window of your car. Follow the manufacturer's requirements for care, maintenance, and replacement schedule. Air contaminated with harmful dust, fogs, fumes, gases, smokes, sprays, or vapors can pose serious health hazards. Sometimes engineering controls are not feasible or fully effective. In such cases, workers must use appropriate respirators. A respirator is a protective face piece, hood, or helmet that is designed to protect the wearer against a variety of harmful airborne agents. There are three main types of respirators: supplied air respirators, which provide pressurized breathing air; self-contained units that have air in a tank that you carry on your back; and air purifying respirators that use filters to clean the air you breathe. Select respirators based on the hazard to which you will be exposed. These hazards include particulates, vapors, oxygen deficiency, or a combination of hazards. Use a respirator only if you have been trained in proper use, maintenance, and limitations. Fit test respirators prior to initial use and at least once annually to make sure they seal to your face and that there are no leaks. A proper fit is essential for respirators to be effective. Before each use, make sure all connections are tight, that the respirator is free of damage or defects, and that it seals correctly on your face. Test every time you put on a respirator and throughout the shift to make sure you are being properly protected. Maintain respirators properly. Clean and disinfect dirty respirators and store properly to keep clean and protect from damage or contamination.
Workplace hazards to the hands include exposure to harmful substances through skin absorption, severe cuts or lacerations, severe abrasions, chemical burns, thermal burns, and harmful temperature extremes. Always wear hand protection when you risk exposure to potentially hazardous conditions.
There are many types of gloves available to protect against a wide variety of hazards. These include gloves made of leather, canvas, or metal mesh, fabric and rubber-coated gloves, and voltage-rated gloves. When selecting gloves, use gloves specifically designed for the hazards and the task. For example, wear heavy-duty rubber gloves for concrete work, welding gloves for welding, and insulated gloves and sleeves when exposed to electrical hazards. Remember, gloves designed for one function may not protect against a different function, even though they may appear to be an appropriate protective device. Inspect gloves before use to ensure that they are not torn, punctured, or ineffective in any way. Discard and replace any glove which impairs protective ability. Make sure gloves fit snugly. In addition to following company or site-specific requirements for hand protection, wear the proper gloves as often as possible. Hand injuries are all too common in construction and all too preventable.
Construction employees working on highway and/or road construction zones often risk being struck by traffic. Even the most attentive drivers and equipment operators may not see workers on foot, especially when light levels are low, at night, or during bad weather, for example. The best protection against these kinds of accidents is to wear high visibility clothing.
When working in road construction zones, always wear high visibility safety apparel with or made of reflectorized or high visibility material so that you can be seen by other drivers or heavy equipment operators. This apparel includes high visibility headwear, vests, jackets, coveralls, trousers, and harnesses. The American National Standards Institute and International Safety Equipment Association define three garment categories which are based on worker hazards and tasks, complexity of the work environment, background, and vehicular traffic. Class 1 garments, generally vests, are for users who have ample separation from vehicular traffic that does not exceed 25 miles per hour, and the background is not complex. Class 1 garments are recommended for parking service attendants, warehouse workers in equipment traffic, shopping cart retrievers, and roadside right-of-way and sidewalk maintenance workers. Class 1 garments are typically not suitable where any potential traffic exposure is expected. Class 2 garments, also available as vests, are intended for users who need greater visibility in inclement weather conditions and whose activities occur near roadways where traffic speeds exceed 25 miles per hour. Workers who would typically wear Class 2 garments include certain railway workers, school crossing guards, parking and toll road personnel, airport ground crews, and law enforcement personnel directing traffic. Class 3 garments provide the highest level of visibility and are intended for workers who face serious hazards and often have high task loads that require attention away from their work. They are also recommended in areas where employees may be exposed to traffic speeds of 50 miles per hour or greater. Garments for these workers should provide enhanced visibility to more of the body, such as the arms and legs. Workers who generally wear Class 3 garments include all roadway construction personnel, vehicle operators, utility workers, survey crews, emergency responders, railway workers, and accident site investigators. Employees who perform maintenance and protection of traffic operations in situations where their attention may be diverted from traffic are particularly at risk and should always wear Class 3 garments. Remember, when you are working in road construction zones, danger is everywhere. Wear high visibility clothing appropriate for your job. To help ensure safety, you may want to consider wearing high visibility clothing when you anticipate contact with moving equipment. For example, during interior demolition work, site work, or landscaping operations. High visibility clothing is specifically designed to help reduce risk in construction zones. Wear it and be safe.
Construction workers risk foot injuries from hazards such as falling or rolling objects, sharp objects, wet and slippery surfaces, molten metals, hot surfaces, and electrical hazards.
A study by the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that fewer than 25% of workers receiving foot injuries were wearing safety shoes or boots at the time of the injury. In nearly all of those cases, safety shoes or boots would likely have prevented the injury.
Don't take your feet for granted. Wear appropriate foot protection when necessary.
If you are exposed to potential foot injuries from crushing or penetrating actions, hot surfaces, falling objects, or hazardous substances, or are required to work in abnormally wet locations, use appropriate foot protection such as steel-toed safety shoes and/or boots. Safety shoes and boots provide both impact and compression protection. Where necessary, safety shoes can be obtained which provide puncture protection. Wear special types of shoes or foot guards when special hazards exist. For example, wear leggings or high leather boots for hot surfaces and/or substances, and rubber or synthetic boots with toxic chemicals. Wear rubber boots when working in concrete or in water. Wear electrical non-conductive or insulating safety shoes when exposed to electrical hazards. Wear metatarsal guards when operating a jackhammer. Select protective footwear appropriate for the hazard. Inspect protective footwear prior to each use. Check the soles of shoes for pieces of metal or other embedded items that could present electrical or tripping hazards. Follow manufacturers' recommendations for cleaning and maintenance of protective footwear.
In the construction industry in the United States, falls are one of the leading causes of worker fatalities.
Each year, on average, between 300 and 350 workers are killed, and more than 150,000 are injured as a result of falls at construction sites.
Not surprisingly, studies indicate that many of these deaths and injuries could have been prevented if appropriate fall protection systems had been used. When you're working at heights, fall protection is essential to your safety.
Falls are the leading cause of death in the construction industry. In many cases, employers are able to use engineering controls, such as guardrail systems, and administrative controls, including training and safe work practices, to help minimize or eliminate fall hazards. However, when these controls do not provide an acceptable level of protection, then it's essential to wear a personal fall arrest system. Workers on construction sites who are exposed to vertical drops of 6 feet or more may be required by law to wear a personal fall arrest system. If worn correctly, A personal fall arrest system can save a worker's life. If worn incorrectly, it can cause additional harm to the worker, possibly causing grave injury. A personal fall arrest system consists of a full body harness designed specifically according to the workplace application, a shock-absorbing lanyard or self-retracting lifeline designed to take the strain out of a fall, and an anchorage, a secure point of attachment for lifelines, lanyards, or deceleration devices. Your employer will select personal fall arrest systems appropriate for the type of work being performed. Choosing the right component in each category is critical to safe functioning of the system and protection of the worker. Regulations state that personal fall arrest systems, including lifelines, must be designed, installed, and used under the supervision of a qualified person. All parts of the fall arrest systems shall be approved and compatible, properly maintained, and cleaned and stored when not in use. Before using a personal fall arrest system, make sure you have been trained in the safe use of the system. This training should include application limits, proper anchoring and tie-off techniques, estimation of free fall distance, including determination of deceleration distance, and total fall distance to prevent striking a lower level, methods of use, and inspection and storage of the system. Always use safe work practices when wearing a personal fall arrest system. Remember, careless or improper use can result in serious injury or death. Inspect fall protection equipment before use. Remove defective equipment from service. Replace personal fall arrest systems after a fall, or if they show signs of wear that could affect performance.
Wearing appropriate personal protective equipment can help protect you from many workplace injuries and illnesses. Follow these tips to help ensure safety and benefit fully from the protection provided by PPE.
Know when PPE is necessary. Know what kind of PPE is necessary. Wear PPE properly. Know how to put it on correctly. Take it off, adjust it, and wear it. Understand the limitations of PPE in protection from injury. Maintain PPE properly. Inspect PPE before each use. Do not use damaged or defective PPE. Report the need to repair or replace PPE to your supervisor. When assessing the need for PPE, be aware of special hazards, such as working over or around water, using chainsaws, working on energized electrical parts, or working with caustic chemicals. Select PPE based on exposure to all potential hazards. Do not rely on personal protective devices alone to provide protection against hazards. Use PPE in conjunction with guards and engineering controls and sound manufacturing practices put in place by your employer.
Hazards exist at every workplace. Sharp edges, falling objects, flying sparks, chemicals, and noise, just to name a few. When engineering and administrative controls are not feasible or do not provide sufficient protection, wear appropriate personal protective equipment to reduce exposure to workplace hazards. It could save your life.